Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, enabled by digital technologies. Our meeting date is Monday, February 7th, 2022. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their image, voice, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those who are joining us via the YouTube channels. Welcome to councillors, staff, and delegations who will participate in tonight's meeting. At this time, I invite your decorum. I did receive earlier some regrets, but I think I see her with us. Councillor Andreessen, welcome. You weren't sure you're going to make it, but it looks like it worked out. Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thanks. I don't believe any other councillors are absent. CEOs, no? Okay. So let us move to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and or voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared in writing ready, to verbally advise the chair in public session, and, if not already done, to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. And tonight we begin with Councillor Anstett. Welcome, Councillor Anstett.
Thanks, Mayor Kasenberg. This evening, through you, I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest on item 5.5.1, the accounts, specifically the daycare, as my son attends the St. Mary's daycare, and also on item 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstett. Next up is Councillor Burns. Welcome, Councillor Burns.
Good evening, Council. Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I have submitted documentation this evening to declare a conflict on 5.5.1, the accounts, as I have grandchildren attending the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center, as well as after-school programming, and in addition to that, 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, I'm aware of Deputy Mayor Kellum. Welcome, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. Yes, I would also like to declare pecuniary interest, specifically under the accounts with regards to daycare, as I have grandchildren that attend the child care center, and as well Perth Meadows as my mother and father-in-law are tenants there, and then subsequently 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others wishing to make a declaration at this hour? We're not seeing any, so let's move forward and talk about how we run this meeting virtually. Tonight, I will be systematically trying to seek consent from various councillors as movers and seconders of the various resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us. I will do this alphabetically to some extent. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the alphabetical list. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining the speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental without intervention from me. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor, after having their first and second crack at things, who want to have another say will have to indicate again and go to the bottom of the speaking list. This is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Councillors, you are asked to generally maintain a state in the web conference until I recognize your right to the floor. If, when I do so, recognize I don't hear you because you are either muted or having some technical difficulty, I will advise. Should technical difficulty be the cause, support will be coming your way from our IT on staff, on duty personnel. And I will, after a reasonable pause, call on our next speaker, coming back to you when you become available for the item. Should any of your votes not show up in eScribe, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, and then return to mute. That allows us now to turn to item 2.2 on our agenda. I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda that reads that the agenda for tonight's meeting be adopted. Councillor Seiler, let's start with you tonight. Will you serve as our mover for that?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to tonight's meeting, Councillor Seiler. And Councillor Andreessen, who is here, pleasantly here. Would you be our seconder for this one?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this? We have the vote.
I'm in favor. I'm having eScribe issues.
Thanks, Councillor Anfett. And that is carried. Thank you very much. That allows us to move to item 3 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require Council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract the item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or action may do so. There are 11 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, do you have any desire to extract any of these items for further discussion or action? Indicate through the chat function, if you will. Councillor Rothwell, you're first. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I appreciate that. Item 3.10, I'd just like to pull that to have conversation with council as to whether or not we wish to support the motion regarding Ontario Land Tribunal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Do we have any further indication, CEO Snell? We're not seeing any others. Councillor Rothwell, I think from a procedural perspective, let's pick up your item first off the table, see if we can find a path to it, and then we'll deal with the entire agenda of consent here. So I'm going to assume you'd like to have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Many councillors, I believe all councillors and the mayor received email from Tom Maracas, the mayor of municipality, regarding the Ontario Land Tribunal and calls for to dissolve the Ontario Land Tribunal. I would just like to have a conversation at council as to whether or not North Perth Council wishes to add its support to that resolution or not. Frankly, I'm not particularly in support of the resolution that it dissolved the Ontario Land Tribunal. I would like to see some changes which have been discussed previously by other municipal councils, not necessarily the full dissolving of the Ontario Land Tribunal, but there are some changes which I think are appropriate. So that's my comments, and if not this evening to have that conversation, perhaps that can be deferred for another meeting. Thank you very much.
All right. Sorry, the councillors, just conferring with CAO Snell about approach here. The suggested approach that we might consider at this point is that councillors have the opportunity to present ideas, thoughts, opinions about this over the next week in writing perhaps, and then we would bring back a report to council as a possible solution for this. Certainly open to hearing other approaches to this if a council would like to engage in other approaches. Anyone feel strongly against the idea of giving all of us a window for written comments and then staff can consolidate those and bring forward a report for further consideration? Okay, I'm not seeing any indication of that. You'd like direction, I assume, Chris, on this one? Okay, so the opportunity then is that council directs staff to open a council consultation, written consultation, consultation opportunity. I'll come back to that by email regarding the correspondence from the city. Was it Aurora? Is the mayor of Aurora? The mayor of the city of Aurora. And that staff bring back a report consolidating any council feedback. Writing it out by hand here, council, in case you're wondering if I've suddenly lost my pace. And staff consult council feedback and providing information to support the deliberations at a future council meeting. CEO says that seems okay. Let me try it again. Council directs staff to open a council consultation opportunity by email regarding correspondence about the Ontario Land Tribunal. I better put that in here. From the mayor of the city of Aurora, and that staff bring back a report consolidating any council feedback and providing information to support the deliberations on this matter, at a future council meeting. Councillor Rothwell, does that seem to capture a reasonable approach to this?
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Yes, I believe it does. I appreciate your wordsmithing on that and Chris's, our CEO's comments, and look forward to providing some comments if council agrees. Thank you.
Okay, so can I call on you to serve as a mover for that one, Alan?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Richardson, would you serve as our seconder?
I would gladly second that. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm sort of going back up the list. You never can predict where I'm going to go. All right, we have a motion that is been drafted and moved and seconded. Any comments or questions or discussion or debate on this one, council? Are we seeing anything, Chris? Okay, does the clerk table feel like we're ready for this vote on East Crab? I'm seeing a yes, so let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, council. Next then, let's actually address the rest of the consent agenda here. So I do have a resolution, unless there's anyone else who'd like to pull an item. Speak now, I'll give you that opportunity. We see any indication of that? No, okay. So the resolution regarding the consent agenda reads that consent items 3.1 to 3.11 be received for information, and the minutes of the January 24th, 2022 regular council meeting be adopted. Okay, let's go back up to the top here. Councillor Anstead, will you serve as a mover for that?
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this one? Okay, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. That allows us to move along to agenda item number 4. This evening, we have no indication of delegations seeking an audience with council, nor have we scheduled any public meetings for meeting tonight. That means we can move along to item 5, reports from departments and key staff. For item 5.1.1, North Perth CAO personnel has provided a report related to the challenges facing municipalities with insurance coverage, particularly with impacts on municipalities related to joint and several liability provisions. I'll call on Mr. Snell to present the report, which calls for advocacy to the province and to answer any council questions about this report. CAO Snell, let me just get the settings worked up here properly, and then we'll turn it over to you. Just hang on.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Certainly, as Council is aware, the issue of joint and several liability has been an ongoing municipal concern for a number of years. This current government committed to reviewing the matter in 2018, and now AMO is calling on the provincial government to request some action prior to the end of the current government's term. Attached was AMO's position paper towards a reasonable balance addressing growing municipal liability insurance costs. And the following recommendations in the report make up part of AMO's issues that they'd like the municipality or the government to address for the municipal sector. Certainly, as council is aware, we've seen our own insurance rates impacted in recent times, and it seems like insurance will continue to be one of our escalating costs. So I did provide a recommendation in the report, but however, tonight we do have a new resolution that was circulated by AMO, and I believe the mayor will read it into the record. But I'm certainly prepared to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you, CAO Snell. In fact, council, yes, I do have an alternate resolution to what was in your package based on AMO presentation to councils for this purpose. But I'd certainly entertain questions and comments at this point before we get to the resolution. Are we seeing anyone expressing interest? Thank you. Then council, I'll put this on the floor and then that provides an opportunity. Do we have the text of this resolution available so councilors can see it, or is it we updated it in eScribe? Okay, thank you. So the resolution that I have before me is a little bit of a long one. Whereas municipal governments provide essential services to the residents and businesses in their communities, and whereas the ability to provide these services is negatively impacted by exponentially rising insurance costs. And whereas one driver of rising insurance costs is the legal principle of joint and several liability, which assigns disproportionate liability to municipalities for an incident relative to their responsibility for it. And whereas the government of Ontario has the authority and responsibility for the legal framework of joint and several liability. And whereas the Premier of Ontario committed to review the issue in 2018 with a view to helping municipal governments manage their risks and costs. And whereas the Association of Municipalities of Ontario on behalf of municipal governments has provided recommendations in this source document, there's a link there, to align municipal liability with the proportionate responsibility for incidents and capping awards. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the municipality of North Perth does hereby support AMO's recommendations, and further, be it resolved that the municipality of North Perth does hereby call on the Attorney General of Ontario to work with municipal governments to put forward a plan of action to address joint and several liability before the end of the government's current term, so that municipalities can continue to offer high quality services to their community. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll certainly make that motion.
Councillor Duncan?
Yes, I will definitely make that motion.
Muted. That's terrible. Let's bring
Can
that.
you hear me?
Thank you. I can hear you. Thanks. Councillor Duncan has moved, and Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing anything? Right, then in the absence of seeing anything, let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. This is an issue that has interested me for the better part of 2 years, and certainly something needs to be done about this issue and insurance in general, given the escalating changes in policies, not just for municipalities, but for all of us. Thank you. As item 5.1.2, Council is invited to support positions and recommendations from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, or AMO, pertaining to ensuring that CN Rail meets its obligations to pay their beneficiary costs for drainage improvements that have been approved by municipal councils. The intent is to show solidarity with an issue affecting many municipalities. I'm going to call on again CAO Snell for brief comments about this matter. CAO Snell, let me just set the AV settings so that we don't create a black hole, and then we'll be good.
Thank you again, Mayor. So as stated by the Mayor, this really is a call to action from AMO to call on CN Rail and all railway companies to fulfill their obligations under the Drainage Act. And as Council is aware, the municipality of North Perth is not affected by the issue because we no longer have railway lines in North Perth, but it is affecting many of our neighboring municipalities, including municipalities within Perth County. So they have requested that we support their actions in this endeavor, and we, as the resolution says, we would be supporting AMO and sending a letter to CN Rail using the AMO template, and certainly here to answer any questions Council may have.
Thank you, CAO Snell. Are there any questions or first comments on this matter? Do we see anything, CAO Snell, in that? Okay. So I do have a resolution then for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth support the AMO call to action regarding CN Rail and drainage, and that Council directs staff to send a letter to CN Rail following the AMO letter template. Councillor Johnston, welcome. Can you to be our mover for this one?
I would definitely move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you serve as our seconder on this one?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's have any discussion or debate. We're not seeing anything, so let's have the vote. Are we missing somebody? Is there a technical problem?
Councillor Richardson.
Councillor Richardson, what say you?
Oh, I'm in favor. Nothing popped up here. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I believe we are carried. Thank you. Let's move to item 5.2. This is reports from the Clerk's Department, and we have a couple of things happening here tonight for item 5.2.1. Council is asked to receive a report on an application for consent to sever related to lands in a listable ward as brought forward by Cobblestone Developments, care of Cameron Gerber. Council is further asked to make a recommendation to deny this application to the Council of the County of Perth. I'll call on County of Perth planner Sean Yilmaz, who works on files related to North Perth, to explain this one. Mr. Yilmaz, please.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of North Perth Council. So application B37-21, submitted by Cobblestone Diversions Incorporated, is an application for a consent to sever the subject property to establish 2 individual lots of record, each containing 1 dwelling unit of an existing semi-detached dwelling. The subject property contains an existing semi-detached dwelling with 2 units that are essentially side by side. And the building is approximately 100 plus years old. However, the actual age is not fully known. The dwelling has historically functioned as 2 separate units. However, is considered one property, that is 220 Elma Street, and is under a single ownership. Essentially, the applicant wants to be able to have separate ownership for each of the units. However, staff cannot support the application as the second floor of the unit located on the west side of the property encroaches over the easterly unit. In effect, the west dwelling unit cantilevers over the lower level of the east dwelling unit. So this is a result of the design of the semi-detached dwelling. The second floor contains a door with a balcony that is located directly in the center of the building and it is for exclusive use of the westerly unit. As a result of this design, the proposal has zoning compliance issues as the westerly unit encroaches over the easterly unit. And therefore does not comply with the setback requirements and would result in a portion of the building projecting over the lot line. For this reason, the application cannot be supported as staff feel this does not conform to the County of Perth official plan and does not represent good planning. The staff report discusses the proposal in more detail. However, section 16.3 of the County of Perth official plan states an application for consent must be in conformity with the provisions of the local municipality's implementing zoning bylaw. As I noted, the encroachment of the westerly unit second floor over the proposed new lot line projecting above the easterly unit does not comply with or maintain the intent of the North Perth zoning bylaw. The bylaw permits a 0 meter lot line setback between the 2 units, which means the walls of each unit may connect on the lot line. In this case, the projection of the second floor unit over the proposed lot line would not conform to this requirement. Creation of a new lot line that results in a building projection raises complications with respect to the issuance of future building permits and potential legalities such as trespassing and access that have not been adequately investigated as part of this application. Considering the age of the building, adherence to the requirements of the zoning bylaw is a fundamental requirement of the official plan with respect to reducing or eliminating such potential issues. Now, in an effort to permit the encroachment and administer the severance, the applicant has submitted a severance sketch and has proposed to register a strata plan to capture the encroachment. A strata plan is a system for handling the legal ownership of a portion of a building or structure and would identify horizontal lot lines. At this time, however, it's not fully understood if a strata plan as proposed for this property to split the semi-detached dwelling could be registered with the Land Registry Office here in Ontario and sufficiently recognize the new lot line as proposed with this encroachment. The strata plan also does not resolve the zoning encroachment issue resulting from this application and the creation of a new lot line that bisects a portion of the structure and results in this extent of an encroachment cannot meet the requirement of the official plan and cannot be supported by staff as representative of good planning. As such, it is our recommendation that North Perth Council recommend to the County of Perth Land Division Committee to deny the application for consent. A public meeting will likely take place on the next Land Division Committee, which is scheduled for February 28, 2022. And just to note that the applicant agent and surveyor is online tonight. If there are any specific questions from this council, they may be able to assist. However, as this isn't a public hearing, there isn't a prescribed opportunity for them to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. An interesting one for sure. Council, questions or first comments on this one? Any of you need to clarify any of the information that's been provided about this? CEO Snell, are we seeing anything? Okay, we're not seeing any indication of same. I have a resolution as presented in the report that reads as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the report entitled Application for Consent to Sever, number B37-21 by Cobblestone Diversions, Inc., care of Cameron Gerber, affecting lands described as Lot 82 and 83, Registered Plan 168, list to award Municipality of North Perth, 220 Elma Street East, Municipality of North Perth, dated February 7th, 2022, prepared by the county planner for information. And that council recommends that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate deny the application for consent to sever number 37-21 by Cobblestone Diversions, Inc., care of Cameron Gerber, affecting lands described as Lot 82 and 83, Registered Plan 168, list to award Municipality of North Perth, 220 Elma Street East, Municipality of North Perth. Can I call on Councillor Rothwell to be our mover for this one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I fully support the recommendations in the planning report.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, will you serve as our seconder on this one?
Yes, I will second that. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Are we seeing anything serious now? I think I will offer my own comment here. I think the issue of strata law, and it's sort of obliquely related to this, is certainly an interesting one, and one that I've picked up with representatives of the Ministry of Housing. And as I understand it at this time, Ontario does not have strata law. Other provinces do. Ontario, Quebec does, and British Columbia does. Ontario does not really have specific strata provisions. So this is certainly a complication in the battle, if you will, to acquire more affordable housing. In this particular case, the planner has brought forward reasonable justification to deny this application, in my opinion. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Rothwell?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Just one point of clarification, actually, strata plans are in operation within the province of Ontario, specifically when we're dealing with multiple level units, such as apartment buildings and condominiums. Strata plans have and will continue to be registered in the province of Ontario when we're dealing with multiple level properties. So 2, 3, 8, 10-story buildings. And each one of those units, if it's a condominium corporation, for example, does have a strata plan. It is very unusual that we would see a strata plan with respect to a consent application. And frankly, my largest concern based on the age of this building is if in fact it's ever torn down, how do you remove that strata plan and get it back to consolidate that parcel? But in the province of Ontario, we do allow for strata plans, but it's usually specifically dealing with condominiums such as apartments. Thank you.
Thank you. And my understanding, as I said, was that the issue is two versus multiples, and so the ability to sort of split a building in two based on strata approach is difficult. You'd need a condominium corporation or 3 parties at a minimum for that. So as other provinces have those provisions, I know that Quebec and BC do allow parties of 2 to split a building and allow separate ownership in that manner, but I don't believe Ontario does. Okay, so let's have. Are there any other comments, discussion, or debate? Right, then let's have the vote on this one. And that is carried. Thank you very much. All right, next up is item 5.2.2. Yes, this is County Manager of Planning Sally McMullen has circulated a draft report to all lower tier municipalities participating in the County of Perth regarding an official plan amendment numbered OPA 202. I admit to being somewhat involved in identifying this problem with section 6.3A of the official current official plan in discussions with Ms. McMullen and the County Council. This OPA intends to quash certain language provisions that do currently prohibit the building or installation of new external additional dwelling units that are approvable under the building code, and that would also prohibit the conversion of existing spaces in residential zones that are less than 5 years old into additional dwelling units. The current impact of this section of the OP that is the target of this change is to put a drag on residential infill on existing residential lots. I'm going to call on County of Perth Manager of Planning, Sally McMullen, to share the current state of thinking about this resolution and to answer any questions about the proposal.
Sorry, actually, I'll be reporting this.
Well, I thought it was going to be Sally. Welcome, Sean.
No problem. Thank you again. Well, so good evening. We are seeking North Perth Council's endorsement of the proposed County of Perth Official Plan Amendment, OPA 202, which amends policies related to second dwelling units in settlement areas within the county. The amendment was requested by Perth County Council and seeks to amend section 6.3A of the official plan, as Mayor Kaysenberg has noted. Section 6.3A contains two parameters, specifically limiting second units in accessory buildings, in that it requires the building to be at least 5 years old before a second unit is permitted, and by directing the lower tiers to require a zoning amendment if an addition to an accessory structure is proposed for a second unit. The proposed amendment would essentially remove the 5-year requirement and will no longer require a zoning bylaw amendment or minor variance if an addition is proposed to an accessory structure, but it would meet all other zoning provisions and regulations. I have spoken to detail to this council regarding this policy specifically on a couple of occasions. So I don't think I need to go through a comprehensive list of benefits of second dwelling units, which are also commonly referred to as additional residential units. But additional residential units are part of the provincial government's response to Ontario's housing crisis, the objective being to facilitate development of more and different types of housing. As such, it is prudent then that municipalities implement additional units as a means of intensification and provisions of housing. As such, it is our recommendation that North Perth Council recommend to County of Perth Council to approve the proposed official plan amendment, OPA 202. I noticed a public meeting has been circulated in 5 newspapers across the county and has been posted to the County of Perth's website. A virtual public meeting is planned at the County of Perth to be held by County Council on February 17th, 2022. Excuse me. All resolutions from lower tier municipal councils pertaining to OPA 202 and passed prior to the February 17th date would be reported by planning staff at that public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. Any questions or comments from councilors before we consider a resolution? Councilor Rothwell?
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Sean, for the report. This is very important, as we've talked about before, to see the update to the policies and county official plan to address these issues. One question I have is in terms of the other provisions in the county official plan dealing with the dwelling units for aging parents and so on, so garden suites and so on. Are they in addition to the additional residential unit policies, or how does that policy interplay with the proposed amendments that were prescribed under Bill 108 in 2019? Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Councillor Rothwell. So essentially, this amendment is really just altering the language with regard to the 5-year requirement and to the required zoning amendment or minor variance. In the new official plan that is being prepared for the county, the updated policies would be in there in its entirety. So currently right now, we're really just removing that piece. How it will interact with the garden suite policies, I would have to really look at it and to give you a better answer with that. We haven't really seen any of that type of, I guess, we haven't had that issue come up in the settlement areas per se. Now in the agricultural designation, there's specific policies that would allow for our garden suite in addition to a second dwelling unit. But within the settlement area, I would need to get back to you to that respect.
Thank you. We look forward to hearing that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. CEO Snell, are there any others on our speaking list at this point in time? Okay, so we're not seeing any others expressing interest. Council, we're going to modify this resolution a little bit because certainly this council can't speak for the other lower tier municipalities as presented. So the resolution reads that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the proposed County of Perth Official Plan Amendment OPA 202 revision to section 6.3A second dwelling units report for information, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth recommend that the County of Perth Council, that the County of Perth Council approve OPA 202 affecting settlement area lands countywide. Can I call on Councillor Andreessen to be our mover here?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstett, please serve as our seconder.
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Any discussion or debate on this one? We're not seeing any, so let's have that. Is there a vote in progress? Oh, why didn't it come up? There it is. And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Council. This action, I think, is quite important to dealing with some of the affordability of housing issues that we have in our community. Let's turn now to item 5.3. And Mr. Yilmaz, thank you. I try not to confuse you with Ms. McMullen, but tonight I lapsed, so I'll work harder at that, I promise. Thank you. Let's turn to item 5.3, reports from the Programs Department. We have no reports coming from that department this evening. I know that they are working hard on a number of things as the pandemic circumstances change and there's a little bit greater permissiveness towards their work. Next then is item 5.4, reports from our Facilities Department. For our only item here, Council is provided with a report pertaining to recently received correspondence asking for a plot of land for an additional community garden. I'm going to call on North Perth Manager of Facilities, Jeff Newell, to comment on the report and its recommendation. Welcome, Mr. Newell.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Yes, there was a report that was requested as part of the January 24th consent agenda with regards to a community garden and a request for an additional garden within the municipality of North Perth. Currently, there is one community garden that operates on Nelson Ave, which is a fairly substantial community garden and provides lots of opportunity for people to participate. And it does, you end up getting some produce for the Salvation Army as well from that garden. The Salvation Army has their own garden as well, which has an educational component to it with regards to gardening and a food literacy program. So there is two gardens currently that would serve that purpose. When staff have had a chance to speak with the individual resident, They had indicated that they had sent a similar request to a number of municipalities looking to create a garden that would have a boutique component to it for sale of goods. And they haven't done much in the way of fundraising, but it looks like the individual would have support from a church community to implement this garden. With this information that we've received, and with the fact that we have two community gardens currently, we feel staff feel that the request for the community garden should be denied at this point, and the recommendation is states that.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. Questions or first comments from council? Okay, we're not seeing anything yet, so let's put the resolution on the floor then. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth deny the request for an additional community garden in the municipality. Can I call on Councillor Barnes to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I will make that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion or debate, comments? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. Ms. Jameson, do we have someone that you're missing that you see?
Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Deputy Mayor Kellum, do you have a?
Yeah, I'm in favor. Just as vote in progress, I'll reboot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And with that vote, then let's see the results. That is carried. Thank you. Let's move forward. Thank you, Mr. Newell. As always, our best to your team.
Thank you.
We move now to reports from the Finance Department as item 5.5.1. Let's talk about the council review of accounts as of this day, February 7th, 2022. This account listing represents expenditures for all municipal services, including Perth Meadows operations, and does not include the incoming revenues that offset those expenses. Some councillors have declared a potential pecuniary interest in this item and will absent themselves from consideration in voting. Are there any questions about this report for our staff? Anything that you're seeing, Chris? We're not seeing anything. So let's have the resolution that the following summary of accounts be received by council for information. The total spend is $914,080.12. Can I call on Councillor Johnston to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you do seconding duties here?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried with the noted abstentions. Next up then is item 5.5.2. Council was asked to amend an earlier bylaw, number 82-2019, related to the construction work now completed for the construction of the Shade Skinner Municipal Drain. I'm going to ask Treasurer Hale, Francis Hale, our Treasurer and Director of Finance, for a review of this matter. Welcome, Treasurer Hale.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, the Shady Skinner Municipal Drain has been deemed to be complete, and we're at a point where we'd like to bill it out. The work came in at 12% over the estimate, but it has been completed, and we do some of the work with our partner here on East, and we are in the position to ask Council to consider the amending bylaw for the billing.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hale. Councillors, any questions or first comments on this matter? We're not seeing any, so let's move on to the resolution. Read as follows, that bylaw number 19-2022 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 82-2019 for the construction of the, I'm going to say Sade now because you said it, Fran, Sade Skinner Municipal Drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Kellum to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our seconder here?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Great. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 5.5.3. Your procurement staff is bringing forward a recommendation to make an award, the Accounts Payable Digitization and Efficiency Improvement Project, subject to a competitive bidding process. Again, Ms. Hale, our Director of Finance and Treasurer, welcome for some comments.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Josh White, our Finance and Purchasing Assistant, is with us this evening, and he'll take council through this purchasing item.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. White.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council. As you may remember, in late 2020, KPMG presented the Administrative Process Efficiency Review Report to Council, which was a project supported by a grant that was by the province of Ontario as part of the Municipal Modernization Program. Following the completion of KPMG's report, the municipality subsequently applied and was approved for additional grant funding. As we look to implement some of KPMG's suggested improvements, in this case, it's our accounts payable process. A request for proposal was issued and closed on November 23rd, 2021, with 4 submissions being received. Evaluations were conducted by 5 municipal staff members, which concluded in 3 of the submissions being deemed as relatively strong. Those 3 bidders were then invited to demonstrate their proposed solutions to members of the evaluation team, being tasked to show the accounts payable process from initially receiving an invoice by either email or paper to the point at which the data is transferred to Keystone for payment processing. Following the demonstrations, evaluations concluded with the evaluators unanimously scoring the joint proposal from Xerox Canada and Process Fusion as the top proposal, as the solution demonstrated a significant reduction in paperwork, manual entry, as well as it can electronically streamline our approval process. Not only should accounts payable staff see the benefits of the solutions, but so should the departments that are submitting, tracking, and approving the invoices as well. With that, we're seeking approval of council to award this request for proposal to Xerox and Process Fusion for a minimum term of 5 years to a maximum of 9, with the extensions for a total up to $174,510. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. White. Let's turn to council. Any questions or first comments on this? We're not seeing any, so let's have a look at the resolution. That Council of the Municipality of North Perth award the Accounts Payable Digitization and Efficiency Improvement Request for Proposal NP 005-21P to the joint submission from Xerox Canada and Process Fusion Inc. Total cost up to $174,510, excluding HST, for the 9-year period. Councillor Seiler, would you care to move that?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you.
You and Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder on this one?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Very good. Thank you. Let's have any discussion or debate. Anyone have comments here? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. White. Next up, item 5.4. 5.5.4, I'll get it right. Council is invited to enable the mayor and clerk to engage in a contract with Her Majesty the Queen in right of the province of Ontario for the purposes of directing the receipt of gas tax funding for accessible transportation services provided in the municipality of North Perth. I'll call on Ms. Hale, but I also note the Queen celebrated her 70th anniversary throne yesterday. Quite remarkable. Ms. Hale.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council. This evening, we're just bringing forward the information with regard to the province of Ontario providing dedicated gas tax funding for our public transportation program. The VON provides the municipality with special transportation services, and been doing this for years now. We've been very fortunate in receiving funding every year, and I've identified that in the report. Currently, we have about $511,000 in reserve, and the VOM is making plans to purchase not only a replacement vehicle, but an additional vehicle to increase the service. And at this point, all this information that I am providing is informal, but we hope that they'll move forward with that as the markets permit and the vehicles become available. That seems to be part of the problem right now for them in acquiring new vehicles. But this evening, we're just looking for council to authorize the mayor and myself to sign the agreement with the province and be able to acquire the funding that's available to us at this time under bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just checking something with CAOs now. Just for any questions or first comments from council? Okay, we're not seeing any, so let me read the resolution into the record here. Bylaw number 25-2022, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a letter of agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and right of the province of Ontario, represented by the Minister of Transportation for the province of Ontario, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be passed, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk. Do we need it sealed with a seal of the corporation, Chris, or no? Sue? Do we need it sealed with the seal of the corporation as well? And sealed with the seal of the corporation. Okay, so the text that I have is missing that. Okay. Sorry, we're just catching up, council. Here we go. Councillor Anstett, will you serve as our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barons, will you be our seconder for this one?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thanks.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Have a vote. Ms. Jameson, are we missing someone?
Councillor Rothwell and Councillor Duncan.
Okay, Councillor Rothwell, what say you?
I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, what say you? Okay, so Councillor Duncan is reporting system difficulties. I think we'll mark him as absent from this vote, and we'll call that vote as carried 9-0 with Councillor Duncan absent temporarily for technical difficulties. I'm going to assume that Simon is assisting Councillor Duncan, or should someone reach out? Thank you. All right, we have no reports from our Environmental Services Department as item 5.6 for this meeting. That brings us to item 5.7, reports from our Manager of Operations. For item 5.7.1, Council is asked to leverage rates provided by Brantco Construction to the County of Perth in the paving of line 81 from Road 147 to 158 in this current financial year. Mr. Couch, our Manager of Operations, is going to address this one. Welcome, Mr. Couch.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg and members of council. This is really a partnership with the county tender that went out last year and the extension of prices with Brantco to continue work into this year. The municipality of West Perth and Perth East have both agreed to put roads into this program this year, and that's what this recommendation is here tonight, to add a section of road that we are working on, specifically list 981 from 147 to 158. To be included in the Brantco program. In terms of budgeting, using these rates, we should be under the budgeted amount that was presented in the capital program a couple of weeks back if we do utilize them. And the remainder of the monies would go to other pavement preservation and other tenders that we'd be putting out for asphalt work later in the summer, or at least for completion later in the summer. So again, the recommendation is to participate in the county's contract 2021-03-1002 and to move ahead with Brantco for the project and start planning the work.
Thank you, Mr. Couch. Any questions or first comments from councillors? Are we seeing anything, Ms. CEOs now? Councillor Rothwell. I just see Councillor Rothwell speaking in there. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Lyndon, for the report. I had conversation with you previously regarding the extent of the paving as to whether or not it's going to extend east into the Hamlet of Britain to repave the broken up portions of line 81. My understanding is that the contract is proposed to include that. Is that correct? Thank you.
Actually, yes, the budget included that section of road that had hardtop on it to be included in this year's quantities. So that's what the budget was a few weeks back when it was provided to you, was to include that section as well. I think it's approximately 100 to 120 meters heading east of the main intersection on 147 in Britain to be in front of most of the driveways, all the driveways heading out that direction. Yes. So they'll do their estimates and they'll include that in the work. It's part of the budget.
Thank you very much. There'll be many residents in Britain who'll be happy to hear that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further questions, first comments? We're not seeing any. The resolution for us here that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve North Perth's participation in the County of Perth Contract 2021-03-10002 with Brantco Construction for rural resurfacing works on line 81. I don't believe Councillor Duncan is back, so I think I'll move to Deputy Mayor Kellum. Will you serve as our mover for that, Doug?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you second that?
Yes, I would second that.
Very much. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried 9-0. I assume it is Councillor Duncan who is as well. Again, okay, so colleagues, Mr. DeWeird is working with.
I'm back. I'm in favor.
Oh, there we go. You're back. You're in favor. Can we amend the record to show that Councillor Duncan is back in favor? CAO Snell is making a note. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Council. Let's move to item 5.8, reports from the fire department. We don't have a report from the fire department this meeting. I know that lots of work is going on there these days, and they continue to have some encounters with fire. We are now at item 6 on our agenda for item 6.1. Councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or of our committees? The usual approach to being recognized applies. We're not seeing anything under item 6, so let's move to item 7. We have received no items of correspondence beyond that already addressed in our consent agenda, which require any further action. And that brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which allows council to consider and enact bylaws. As item 8.1, council is invited to approve a bylaw that enables the corporation to enter into a contract with the province of Ontario for the receipt of grant funding under the Municipal Modernization Fund, Wave 3, I believe, with purpose earlier identified in this meeting. Any questions from council before we consider the resolution? Seeing none, let's have the resolution that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth consider bylaw number 23-2022, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a transfer payment agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of the province of Ontario, represented by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for the province of Ontario, be considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. I call on Councillor Richardson to be our mover for this one.
I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our seconder on this one?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Sorry, Council, for a brief delay. I'm just conferring with the CAO about procedural matter. Okay, sorry about that, Council. Just sort of a question about wording of these resolutions, but we're acknowledging that there's a little bit of oddity in them. We might need to fix them on final presentation. So next up is item 8.2. This one, council is invited to approve a bylaw that establishes a new road, Hutton Avenue. I believe it assumes rights and privileges there in the aftermath of residential construction. I'm going to let CAO Snell offer a few comments on this one. Just let me set it up so that we don't create very scary noises.
Thank you, Mayor. Typically in the registration of an M plan for a subdivision, the highways are all transferred to the municipality or the streets. With this M plan, because of the easement that runs along Hutton Street, Block 76 was blocked off from the easement from the rest of the registration of the subdivision, and therefore was not deemed to be part of the public highway. And so Block 76 just got transferred to us as a block, and now to allow the developer and the builder to sell blocks 3 and 4, we just need to declare that Block 76 part of Hutton Street to give them access to an open public highway. So I can answer any questions council may have, but that's the explanation.
Thank you, CAO Snell. Council, any questions or first comments on this matter? Okay. I think we're seeing these. So let me look at the revised resolution on the appropriate revision that we will hear. It should read, this resolution should read that bylaw number 24-2022, being a bylaw of the municipality of North Perth establishing highways, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Ms. Jameson, are we waiting on someone?
Councillor Rothwell.
Councillor Rothwell, what say you?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, there's the result. That is carried. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 9 on our agenda. Are there any councillors wishing leave to give notice of motion this evening? We're not seeing any, so let's move to 10. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? If you would like to speak, again, indicate in our chat window. We're not seeing anything there, which means we move on to item 11 on our agenda. We have no matters for consideration in a closed session meeting of council tonight. That means that for item number 12 on our agenda, we have nothing to report since nothing happened in a closed session. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the Confirmatory Bylaws. I have the draft for a Confirmatory Bylaw number 26-2022, which reads as follows. And bylaw number 26-2022 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried with the abstentions earlier noted. Councillors, we have completed the deliberations and taken action on the business that has come before us tonight. I have a motion to adjourn, which reads as follows. That the council meeting adjourns at 8:14 p.m. Oh, Councillor Rothwell, do you have something?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Just before we adjourn, I just want to confirm for all members of the council that the budget committee meeting, which was scheduled for this coming Wednesday, February 9th, has been canceled, and we are scheduling a budget committee meeting for Wednesday, February 16th, just to update everyone's information in case they didn't check their email today. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So let me try the resolution that the council meeting adjourns at 8:14 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, February 14th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Valentine's Day, meeting on Valentine's Day. That's what I've taken note of. Thank you for that. Councillor Anstead, will you move that knowing that Valentine's Day is going to interfere with?
Yes, I will move that.
Thank you, sir. And Councillor Barnes, how about you? Are you willing to put us on schedule for a meeting next week?
Yes.
Thank you. And that's not debatable, so let's have that vote. And that is unanimously carried. Good luck to all of you in explaining that to your spouses or partners. This council will meet again for our next regular meeting, again using digital enabling technologies on Valentine's Day, Monday, February 14th, 2022. With that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, council. Have a great week.